If you actually look at the watches soldiers wear in the field, something strange happens. The same 12 watches keep showing up. Not luxury tactical brands, not $800 operator gear, just 12 brutally simple watches that work every time. Some cost less than $100, while others even cost as little as $50. And in 2026, they're still the ones showing up on deployments. So we went through every option and cut the noise. These are the 12 cheapest military watches still worth buying, starting with the one that costs less than a fancy dinner. Watch number 12. Adizdive K Field. Featured on Timed. Reviews as an elegant watch below the $50 mark, the Adizdive K Field is an AliExpress micro-brand watch that costs roughly $50 and has a genuine NH35 automatic movement inside it. For context, the NH35 is a Swiss-designed, Japanese-assembled caliber that shows up in watches costing $150 to $200 from brands with actual marketing budgets. For most people, AliExpress watch ends the conversation, and honestly, that reaction made sense 4 or 5 years ago. The micro-brand space was full of garbage. Then the supply chains opened up. Between 2021 and 2025, there was a quiet revolution in affordable watchmaking. Chinese micro-brands started accessing the same quality components that Swiss and Japanese brands had previously kept in their own lane. Suddenly, you could build a watch around an NH35 movement, drop it in a solid case with 200-meter water resistance, and sell it for $50 because the overhead wasn't there. The K Field is the result of that math. Matte military dial, no flashy logos, clean indices, and crown protection. A case that looks and feels like a field watch, not a fashion watch, wearing camo. The military community noticed in 2025, when forum threads started circulating comparing the K Field's specification sheet against watches at triple the price. The verdict was uncomfortable for the expensive brands. What you're not getting. Sapphire Crystal, Swiss-grade movement finishing, a brand name with 50 years of stories attached to it. Customer service from a Chinese micro-brand can be time zone dependent. What you are getting. A self-winding mechanical movement in a water-resistant military-style case for the price of a nice dinner. The NH35 movement alone, as a standalone component, costs around $40 to $50 to source. You're essentially getting the watch as a free bonus. The Adizdive K Field is the most surprising entry on this entire list, and it starts at $50. $50 got you through the door. The next watch has been trusted by soldiers since before half the people watching this were born, and it still costs less than a night out. Watch number 11, Timex Expedition Scout. There are watches soldiers buy, and then there are watches soldiers keep. The Timex Expedition Scout is often both. At roughly $70, it delivers the core elements of a traditional field watch: an analog dial with clear Arabic numerals, a straightforward quartz movement, and strap options that typically include leather or durable nylon. The design traces directly back to mid-23rd century military field watches, built for legibility and practicality rather than complexity. What made the Scout widely adopted isn't an advanced feature set. It's the opposite. The watch deliberately avoids modern additions that complicate reliability. There's no GPS module, no fitness tracking, no Bluetooth pairing, no notifications, and no fragile display. Instead, the Scout uses a conventional quartz movement powered by a simple battery that can run for years with minimal attention. In environments where reliability matters more than connectivity, that simplicity is an advantage. The defining feature is Timex's Indiglo backlight system. With one press of the crown, the entire dial illuminates evenly, making the time readable in complete darkness without needing to angle the watch toward an external light source. The technology has been used across Timex models since the early 1990s and remains one of the most practical illumination systems on analog watches. The Scout's design has remained largely unchanged because the fundamentals already work: a legible dial, a lightweight case, and reliable quartz timekeeping. Over decades of outdoor use, from hiking and camping to general field work, the formula has proven durable enough for everyday demands without unnecessary complexity. Even in 2026, the Scout still sells for roughly the same $70 price point it has occupied for years. While inflation has pushed the cost of most gear upward, Timex has kept this model positioned as an accessible entry point into functional field watches. Its limitations are straightforward. The mineral crystal is durable but not indestructible, and the case isn't engineered for extreme shock resistance like a Casio G-Shock DW5600. But when you need a watch that quietly keeps accurate time during a long hike, a training ruck, or any situation where electronics fail and simplicity matters, the Scout continues to do exactly what a field watch is supposed to do. The Scout keeps things old school. The next watch keeps things old school too, but adds a feature set that made Casio a military standard for over 30 years. Same price range, different world. Watch number 10. Casio DW9052-1V. What does a watch look like when it's been tested in real operational environments for 30 years straight and still costs under $100? The DW9052-1V. Casio has been quietly perfecting this architecture since the 80s. Resin case, digital display, module-based function layout. The design hasn't chased trends because it doesn't need to. The trends have been chasing it. At $89.95 in 2026, the DW9052 runs Casio's tough solar system, which means it charges from light. Any light. Natural, artificial, it doesn't matter. This is a watch that you never need to replace the battery in. In the field, that's not a convenience feature. That's one fewer failure point. Failure points matter. 200-meter water resistance, shock protection, world time across multiple zones, a countdown timer, and a stopwatch. The full military utility package for the cost of filling a gas tank. The DW9052 has been photographed on wrists at training grounds, on deployments, in disaster response operations, on mountainsides, and in rivers, not because Casio paid for placement, but because it earned the repetition. The fair criticism. Casio's button navigation has a learning curve. It's not intuitive to someone used to touchscreens, and there's no GPS, no connectivity, no smart function at all. That last part is actually a feature. A watch that connects to nothing, cannot be jammed, cannot be tracked, and cannot be disrupted by electromagnetic interference. Casio's engineers understood this 4 decades ago. The military community rewarded them with 30 years of trust that no marketing campaign could have manufactured. Under $100, solar-powered, and an indestructible reputation. Casio under $100. That's a benchmark. The next watch costs almost the same, but it was built for one scenario specifically, high impact, and it delivers. Watch. Number 9. Timex Expedition GridShock. Your watch just took a hit, a hard drop from a vehicle, contact with a rock during a climb, or an elbow during training that nobody's proud of. The Timex Expedition GridShock response? Nothing. It absorbed it. The name isn't marketing language. The reinforced grid structure surrounding the case is the core idea behind this watch. Instead of relying on a thick rubber shell alone, the case uses an external lattice-like reinforcement that distributes impact forces before they reach the internal module. It's a simple engineering concept. Redirect and spread shock loads rather than allowing them to concentrate at a single point. Timex built the GridShock because the standard Expedition case design wasn't sufficient for environments involving repeated impacts, climbing, abrasion, or rough field work. Rather than just adding cosmetic bulk, the company redesigned the outer case architecture to provide genuine structural protection around the digital module. At roughly $90 to $110 in 2026, the GridShock occupies a budget tier that rarely includes purpose-built shock protection. In practical terms, it functions as an affordable alternative to watches like the Casio Rangeman, which typically costs several times more. Functionally, the watch stays straightforward. The digital module includes dual time zones, a chronograph, a countdown timer, multiple alarms, and 100-meter water resistance, which is adequate for swimming, rain exposure, and most outdoor activities. For low-light use, Timex includes its well-known Indiglo electroluminescent backlight, which illuminates the entire display evenly with a single button press. One of the first things users notice is the weight. Despite the rugged appearance, the watch is surprisingly light on the wrist. The resin construction keeps overall mass low, which matters during long periods of wear. Whether you're climbing, hiking, or moving through training drills, the watch doesn't feel like equipment you're constantly adjusting. In field gear, That lack of distraction is valuable. The best tools are often the ones you forget you're carrying. There are limitations. The display can become harder to read in very bright direct sunlight compared to some high-contrast LCD designs. Battery life is also shorter than that of solar-powered digital watches, meaning long deployments without battery replacement require planning. But within its price range, the GridShock excels at its primary purpose, absorbing impact and continuing to function. That durability is the entire point of the watch, and it delivers exactly that. Impact protection, under $110. The next watch built its entire reputation on something different. Not just surviving hits, but surviving everything. For the last 4 decades running. Watch, number 8, Casio G-Shock DW5600E1V. Between 2010 and 2024, the Casio G-Shock DW5600E appeared on the wrists of more active-duty service members than almost any other consumer watch. That observation isn't based on marketing claims or official endorsement. It's a pattern visible across deployments, training environments, and field photographs from multiple branches. The DW5600E became common because it solved practical problems reliably and cheaply. The DW5600E sits at the entry level of the broader Casio G-Shock range. In 2026, it sells for about $99.95 at retail. Its square resin case traces directly back to the original 1983 G-Shock design. Over 4 decades, the external layout has remained largely unchanged. A compact digital display, protective resin bezel, and recessed pushers that reduce accidental presses. Casio never dramatically altered the design because the underlying concept works. The watch is built around a straightforward engineering philosophy: shock resistance, water resistance, accuracy, and durability in a compact format. Internally, the module sits within a protective structure designed to absorb impact forces from multiple directions. The resin case and strap keep the watch light, which matters during extended wear with gear and gloves. The DW5600E's reputation in military circles developed organically during the 1990s. Many service members began purchasing G-Shocks with their own money after discovering that issued watches often lacked durability under field conditions. The G-Shock offered 3 advantages simultaneously. It survived impacts better, weighed less than many metal watches, and cost far less to replace. As more personnel adopted it, the watch spread informally through recommendations inside units. Eventually, the pattern reached supply officers and procurement planners. While the DW5600E was never universally issued across all branches, it appeared frequently on approved equipment lists because personnel were already using it successfully. Technically, the specifications are straightforward but effective. The watch provides 200-meter water resistance, Casio's multi-directional shock protection system, and battery life typically measured in several years, depending on usage. Timekeeping accuracy is standard quartz performance, usually within seconds per month. Criticism of the model usually focuses on its simplicity. The DW5600E does not include sensors such as a compass, altimeter, thermometer, or GPS. That omission is intentional. The watch belongs to the basic tier of the G-Shock lineup, designed for durability rather than advanced instrumentation. That simplicity is also part of its reliability. Fewer electronic systems mean fewer potential failure points. The DW5600E concentrates on a small set of functions: shock protection, water resistance, and dependable timekeeping, and performs those consistently. For organizations or individuals equipping multiple personnel under tight budgets, the formula remains compelling. A durable digital watch with 4 decades of proven field use, available for under $100. The DW5600 is the standard. The next watch was engineered by people who sell gear to the people setting the standard, and they built something different. Watch number 7. 5.11 Tactical Pathfinder. 5.11. Tactical doesn't make watches. Except they do, and most people don't know that, which is exactly why the Pathfinder belongs on this list. 5.11 is the brand you see on every cop, every federal agent, every operator who actually has to show up to hard situations. The pants, the bags, the boots, the gear that professionals actually wear when they need stuff to work. 5.11. Doesn't release things casually. They release things when operators ask for them. The Pathfinder is their field watch. $100 in 2026. The interesting thing isn't the price, it's the source. 5.11. Built the Pathfinder from direct operator feedback. Not focus groups, not retail trend analysis. Law enforcement and military personnel are telling gear engineers what a wrist instrument actually needs to do when things go wrong. The result: robust quartz movement, anti-reflective crystal, matte black case and dial, and a minimalist analog layout built for fast time reads under pressure. The illumination is deliberately bright enough to read, dim enough that it doesn't advertise your position in low-light situations. That distinction sounds small. It isn't. The strap is replaceable and designed for field conditions. The case construction is solid without being heavy. And unlike generic, tactical watches from brands that just borrowed the aesthetic, the Pathfinder has real brand accountability behind it. 5.1. One services what they sell because the people buying it work in situations where unreliable gear is a liability. The limitation worth knowing: analog only, no digital display, no split-second timer, no dual time zone at a glance. The Pathfinder is built for clarity in the moment, not for multi-function complexity under load. $100. Built by the brand operator's trust and a professional DNA at an amateur price. 5.1. One made an operator's watch and priced it at $100. The next watch decided that $100 should include a titanium case and an automatic movement. In 2026, somehow, that math works. Watch number 6, Bauderie Voyager. Automatic. 5 years ago, a watch with this specification typically started around $300. A titanium case, automatic movement, sapphire crystal, and a practical field watch layout placed the watch firmly in the mid-tier category. Titanium alone raised costs because it's harder to machine than stainless steel. Pair it with a reliable mechanical movement and solid water resistance, and $300 was effectively the entry point for brands considered credible. Spend less. And compromises usually appeared: mineral glass instead of sapphire, quartz instead of automatic, or standard stainless steel instead of titanium. In 2026, the Bauderie Voyager Automatic typically sells between $99 and $139, depending on configuration. Its specification list resembles watches from a higher price tier: a lightweight titanium case, the widely used Seiko NH35 automatic movement, 100 meters of water resistance, and, on some versions, a sapphire crystal. When the Voyager began circulating among enthusiasts, the reaction was disbelief. The brand behind it, Bauderie, is a young Chinese microbrand that benefited from major shifts in global manufacturing and component sourcing. Since around 2022, supply chain changes have allowed smaller companies to access the same movements, materials, and machining capabilities previously reserved for larger manufacturers. While established brands continued pricing around heritage and brand equity, Bauderie focused on a simpler proposition: deliver strong mechanical specifications at the lowest sustainable price. The Voyager is their interpretation of a classic field watch. The dial is matte and highly legible, using a military-style layout designed for clarity rather than decoration. Inside, the NH35 automatic movement winds through wrist motion, requiring no battery or charging. As long as the watch is worn regularly, it continues running. What Bauderie lacks is historical credibility. The company is new, and the Voyager has no long service record or military contracts behind it. What it offers instead is one of the strongest specifications: per-dollar ratios under $200. By 2025, many collectors tested it themselves, and early skepticism faded as the watches consistently performed as advertised. Bauderie disrupted the price floor. The next watch never needed to disrupt anything. It spent decades becoming a legend through one method: being correct, every time, for people who know watches. Watch number 5. Seiko 5 Military Snack 809. There's a specific person who ends up with the Seiko 5 Military on their wrist. They've done the research, watched the comparison videos, spent hours on forums, considered entry-level G-Shocks, looked at micro-brand automatics, and run through every best field watch list they could find. And after all of that, they came back to the Seiko. Not because it's exciting, because it's correct. The SNK 809 runs between $110 and $130 in 2026. The 7S26 automatic movement inside keeps time to within roughly 20 seconds per day, not precision certified, but more than accurate enough for field use. The case is 37 millimeters, brushed steel, clean and compact in a market that's been inflating case sizes toward 44 millimeters and beyond for a decade. On the wrist, the Seiko 5 Military feels like a watch, not a statement, not a gadget, a watch that shows you the time, the day, the date, and lets you get on with the mission. The movement is automatic and self-winding from wrist motion. No battery, no charging. The watch runs as long as you're wearing it. Military personnel in extended situations without resupply understand why this matters in a way that most people don't think about. Mineral crystal, not sapphire. But Seiko's mineral glass is denser and more impact-resistant than most brands' equivalent. Water resistance sits at 100 meters. By 2026, the SNK 809 and its variants had over a decade of consistent placement in military gear guides, field watch rankings, and what I actually wear testimonials from people who've used watches in serious environments. The consensus stopped being a debate years ago. This is the automatic field watch for people who know what they're looking at. The Seiko earned its reputation over decades. The next watch earned its spot on this list through one specific capability. It was engineered for stealth operations, and nothing else at this price point comes close. Watch number 4, Casio G-Shock GD 3508. Vibration alert. Not a sound, not a beep. A haptic signal. A physical vibration against your wrist that lets you receive time alerts without a single noise leaving your watch. In stealth operations, in surveillance, in situations where even a single sound means exposure, that's not a convenience feature, that's operational. The Casio G-Shock GD 350 was built around that capability. $145 in 2026. Listed under Casio's military series on their official US catalog. Designed explicitly for tactical applications where acoustic silence is a requirement, not a preference. The baseline is standard G-Shock, 200-meter water resistance, multi-directional shock protection, 5 alarms, world time, and countdown timer. All of it sits under the vibration alert function like a foundation. Law enforcement surveillance units pick this up quietly, not through press releases or tactical gear reviews, but through word of mouth between professionals. Military intelligence found it operationally relevant. The GD 350 became the kind of recommendation that gets passed person to person rather than advertised. The honest assessment: the interface is busy. More buttons, more modes than the standard DW5600 layout. The learning curve is steeper. Invest time with this watch before you need it to perform in a high-stress situation. Don't expect to figure it out on the day. The case runs larger than the classic square G-Shock format. More presence under a sleeve. That's a feature or a limitation, depending on your wrist and your requirements. At $145, you are paying for one thing above all else: the ability to receive time-critical alerts without making a sound. If you don't need that capability, several watches earlier on this list will serve you better for less money. If you do need it, nothing else at this price point offers it. The GD 350 owns the stealth operation. The next watch owns something different: the hostile terrain category. American-built, titanium case, engineered for environments that break other watches. Watch number 3, Bertucci, a 2T Super Classic. Picture the worst possible environment for a watch. Salt water, sand getting into everything, temperatures swinging from below freezing at night to baking through the afternoon, constant vibration from vehicle movement, mud impact, more mud, and chemical exposure. UV degradation over months of continuous outdoor wear. The Bertucci A2T Super Classic was designed specifically for exactly that environment. Bertucci is a Massachusetts-based company that has been building field watches for military and outdoor use since 2003. They don't make dress watches. They don't make fashion accessories. They make field watches for people who use them as field watches. The A2T is their titanium model, and at $140 to $160 in 2026, it's currently the most affordable titanium-cased military watch on the market. Titanium matters in this application. Significantly lighter than steel, which matters on wrists already carrying a load across a distance. Hypoallergenic, relevant for personnel with skin sensitivities or extended wear requirements. And titanium doesn't corrode. Drop it in salt water repeatedly over months and walk away without a maintenance routine. The movement is Swiss Ronda quartz. Not automatic, not solar, but Swiss-made quartz that runs reliably for years on a single battery change. The crystal is a scratch-resistant mineral. The strap is Bertucci's own field-grade nylon, replaceable and machine-washable, which sounds minor until you've had to deal with a strap that can't be cleaned in the field. What it doesn't do: no digital display, no stopwatch native to the watch face, no alarm function on standard configurations. This is an analog field instrument built for legibility and durability first. Technology is second. That's a deliberate choice by a brand whose customers specifically asked for it. American brand, titanium, under $160. For personnel who need lightweight, chemical-resistant, and non-corrosive, the Bertucci is quietly one of the most undervalued answers on this entire list. Bertucci gave you titanium for under $160. The next watch pushed it further, sealing the case so thoroughly that water and dust don't have a conversation with the movement. And it powers itself indefinitely. Watch number 2, Citizen ProMaster Tough. $300 on a list of the cheapest military watches. Fair question, let's resolve it. The Citizen ProMaster Tough earns its place here not despite the price, but because of what that price delivers and what's absent from every cheaper option. This is the watch where the gap between military capable and military grade actually starts closing. Citizen's EcoDrive technology powers the ProMaster from any light source. The charge reserve on a fully powered unit carries the watch through over 6 months of complete darkness. 6 months, zero external power required during that window. That sounds hypothetical, but it isn't. Long-duration deployments, remote postings without reliable power infrastructure, underground operations are measured in weeks. The battery dependency question is a real tactical calculation for personnel in these situations. The ProMaster eliminates it. The monocoque case construction is the other reason this watch is on the list. There is no case back on the ProMaster. The movement is accessed through the crystal, which means the watch has one fewer seam and one fewer potential failure point for water or dust penetration. Handle one, and you feel the difference immediately. It's dense and sealed in a way that other watches don't replicate. 200-meter water resistance, GIS shock-resistant certification, luminous hands and indices. The ProMaster has appeared in multiple 2026 military and tactical gear guides specifically for the combination of sealed construction and permanent energy independence. At $295 to $350, nobody would call this cheap in casual conversation. But compare it against what the same money buys in the G-Shock flagship range, or entry-level Swiss automatics, or other military-grade watches. The ProMaster wins on the combination of sealed case architecture and indefinite self-powering. No other watch under $400 offers both. The ProMaster is built for soldiers. Number 1 on this list was built by soldiers for soldiers. There is a difference, and the difference is the whole point. Watch number 1, Marathon General Purpose, GP. There's a distinction this entire list has been building toward. Military capable, military grade, and then a third category that only a handful of brands in the world can claim. Watches that are actual military contracts. Not watches designed to look tactical, not watches marketed to the military community, watches that went through government procurement, that survived the testing process. Those were carried by soldiers who were issued them. Marathon Watch Company, founded in 1904 and currently based in Canada, has supplied the United States Armed Forces and the Canadian Armed Forces with watches under active contract for decades. The caseback doesn't have marketing language. It has NSN codes, which are NATO stock numbers, military specification text, Nuclear Regulatory Commission identification, and individual serial numbers. These aren't design choices. They're contract documentation that the watch ships with its operational paperwork on its body. The case is lighter than steel and more impact-resistant than standard resin. The sapphire-coated crystal handles impact without shattering. The tritium gas tubes in the hands and indices provide illumination that never dims, never charges, never degrades meaningfully over the watch's operational life. Passive, permanent light, powered by nothing external. The movement is a Swiss quartz movement, meeting military precision requirements. Marathon has confirmed deliveries to the U.S. Marine Corps, U.S. Navy, U.S. Army, U.S. Air Force, IDF Special Units, Canadian Armed Forces, and Royal Canadian Air Force search and rescue personnel. That's not a brand story. That's a service record. The General Purpose has different versions with their prices starting at $250, which makes it cheaper than the Citizen ProMaster while carrying something the Citizen doesn't. Wear this watch, and you're wearing what soldiers were issued. That's not a metaphor. That's provenance. And there is no cheaper way to buy it. Final verdict: real field watches, real budgets. 12 watches. Zero padding. What this list actually proves: military credibility doesn't require a mortgage. It requires knowing what to look for and knowing the difference between a watch that looks like it belongs in the field and one that actually performs there. At the budget tier, $50 to $100, the Addies dive surprises on mechanical value. The Casio DW9052 and G-Shock DW5600 cover decades of field-proven dependability, and the Timex Scout delivers analog simplicity that nothing in that price range meaningfully beats. All four work. Your choice comes down to which features matter for how you actually use it. In the middle range, $100 to $160, the conversation gets interesting fast. Titanium enters. Automatic movements enter. Purpose-built tactical DNA enters with 5.11. Operator-informed engineering enters with the Bertucci. The best value per specification ratio on this entire list lives in this tier in 2026. At the top end, $250 to $350. The Citizen ProMaster seals itself against everything and powers itself indefinitely. The Marathon GP carries a service record that no other watch on this list, at any price, can match. The question was never which of these is the best watch. The question is which one is right for your mission. 12 options, every one battle-tested, every one under $350. If this breakdown helped you narrow down your next field watch, hit like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss that next guide when it drops.